after signing to Atlantic by releasing his own solo mixtape for the first time ever in 2005 called Fahrenheit 115 Part 1, The Truth is Among Us. Then in 2006, Lupe Fiasco kept the mixtapes coming to build his buzz up. He dropped Part 2 of the Fahrenheit series called Revenge of the Nerds, and he dropped Part 3 of the Fahrenheit series called A Rhyming Ape. After that, Lupe Fiasco would begin promoting his official debut album. On April 18th, 2006, he dropped his first single called Kick Push. And it was definitely something different in hip-hop. Talking about skateboarding was something that I didn't hear at that time at all. The song ended up peaking at number 78 on the Billboard Hot 100. Then a couple months later, he dropped his second single called I Gotcha on August 8th, 2006. And the track was produced by Pharrell, who at that time was on fire, making beats for literally everyone in hip-hop. But this song underperformed and didn't even chart on the Billboard Hot 100. Following that, on September 11th, 2006, he dropped the third single from his album called Daydreaming, featuring soul singer Jill Scott. The song never charted on the Billboard Hot 100, which is insane because it's such a good track. If you haven't heard it, go ahead and check it out. But the good thing that did happen is Daydreaming won a Grammy for Best Urban / Alternative Performance. So Lupe Fiasco, off his debut album, won a Grammy, which is the reason why it's so crazy is because this song didn't even chart on the Hot 100. Win a Grammy off a song that's not even popular. Were the Grammys actually focusing on good music at that time? Maybe so. Nowadays, they definitely don't. Whatever wins usually is the hottest thing for that year. Following that, on September 9th, 2006, Lupe Fiasco dropped his debut album, Lupe Fiasco's Food and Liquor. The album debuted at number 8 on the Billboard 200 and sold 81,000 copies within its first week. And as of January 2008, it went on to sell 325,000 copies in the United States. Now this was 2008. I'm sure by now, 10 years, 12 years down the road, it's gone gold at least. And when it was released, it received great reviews. Every review was at least an 8 out of 10. In the 6th grade is when he started living with his father full time, and he ended up moving to Harvey.
Damn, like I'm over here, I don't do that.
Lupe also decided to music. In a tweet, he actually said, I would have stopped making music after the Cool, but my OG Big U called me out the blue and said, as a Muslim and as a man, I had to fulfill my obligations that I signed my name to, no matter the cost. Basically, boss up and get through it and rebuild once you're out. After the petition and the 30,000 signatures, Lupe Fiasco's fans took it one step further and decided to protest in front of Atlantic Records. Lupe Fiasco heard of this and said he's going to join them, and the date that they set was October 15th, 2010, and when that day came, they were outside protesting for Lupe's new album. Then Leor Cohen, who was the CEO of Warner Music Group, which Atlantic Records is under, came out and decided to play the first single off the album.
So, thank you for the petition. First of all, 30,000 signatures.
And bam, just like that, a week later, the first single, which was called The Show Goes On, released on October 26th, 2010. And this track would end up becoming Lupe's biggest hit to date. It ended up peaking at number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100.
I mean, I'm a Lupe fan. I had all Lupe albums. Everything. All black, everything. Coronavirus. Just had well, not a super long conversation. Now I'll even check the time. Let's see. My last phone call was... well, he called me back. Incoming call. We talked for at least an hour. So my homeboy in New York, he just watched the Netflix documentary Who Killed Malcolm X. And he said he never knew anything about Malcolm X. Really just the very superficial shit that most people think about Malcolm X, is he was some radical Muslim from the Nation of Islam who hated white people. And my homie said that's all he ever knew about Malcolm X, and you know, he know more about Dr. King and all this other stuff, but he said once he watched that documentary, yo, he was like, I can't believe all the shit I never knew about this dude, yo. I'm like, bro, that's why I try to tell you, man, to read this shit, bro. I put this shit in my paintings, man. I throw this shit in my art. You know what I'm saying? Try to talk about the man. Malcolm X was a great, great man, yo. But we don't got no Malcolm X Day. We got Martin Luther King Day, though. We ain't got no Malcolm X Day. I wonder why. Oh, shit. A long ass day. I have my after school program today.
That church is lying to you. And that church is going to have send you to hell. And in the very first lecture, I dealt with the image of the blonde, blue-eyed Jesus. And I made the statement that you had to beware of a church such that when you walk into it, the first thing you see is a blonde, blue-eyed Jesus back behind the altar. That church is lying to you. And that church is going to have send you to hell. How did I say that? Because first of all, there's nowhere in the Bible that a description of that Jesus has ever been given. And secondly, that Bible strictly states that graven images should not be made. And it's done. And one minister jumped up, offended because of that statement, and took the statement personally. And I'm a minister in the such and such a church, and I took a course under Dr. Cone at Columbia University, and just laid it all out for me, and objected to it as if I were attacking the minister directly. And I was dealing with the concept, and I was dealing with the psychology of having gods painted in alien forms, and how that induces self-hatred and maintains self-hatred in the people. How praying to a white man is damaging to black people. And how thinking of God as a white man is damaging to black people. I'm dealing with the concept here. Yet she felt a need to defend what she thought of as herself and her profession. But in defending herself, she actually
Yo, how I just said something about Malcolm X, and now in my YouTube feed, the next suggested video, Malcolm X video. I haven't seen any Malcolm X suggestions in my YouTube feed for months. But all of a sudden now, that right before I turn on YouTube and everything, I mentioned Malcolm X and this and that and blah blah blah, and now all of a sudden, you know what? The next video you should watch this video of Malcolm X. Like, really, electronics, y'all listen too fucking hard, yo. Mind your own business. Stop fucking listening to every goddamn thing we say. This shit is fucking scary. It's creepy. It's weird. It's intrusive. It's invading my privacy. It's upsetting. It's definitely frustrating. And above all, I don't like it. I don't like when my devices listen to me and then prompt me to do things that I was just talking about. It's awkward. Let's not do this. Okay? Technology, just take the ears off this shit so it doesn't have to hear everything we fucking say and talk about. It's the worst. It's the worst thing ever. Now, if I sit here and talk about kitty food, cat litter, kitty cats, and kittens, and kittens and cats and lions and big cats and small cats and tabby cats and kitty litter and kitty food and cat food and cat food and kitty food. Now I wonder, in 10 minutes would I get like some fucking advertisement for some goddamn cat food or some shit just because I'm talking about cats? I don't own a fucking cat. I don't even like cats. I hate how cats act. They got bad personalities and they shit in the box in the house. I shit in the house too, but I flush it down the toilet. I don't shit in the box and then wait for somebody else to clean the shit up behind me. That's what cats do. Like they got maids. A dog go outside, shit in the yard. He don't give a fuck if you pick it up or not. Dog don't give a fuck if you don't pick his shit up. Now a cat shit in the box. If the box get too full of shit, the cat gonna look at you like, nigga, clean my litter box out. I'm gonna look at the cat like, here's a scooper, here's a trash bag, you do it your fucking self. Cat, with your cat food, and your kitty litter, and your kittens. Just doing an experiment here, guys. Meow. Now, once again, if I see anything in any of my digital self, whether it be Google or goddamn Facebook, I better not see no goddamn cat advertisements, because I know you listen. I still find it weird how that Malcolm X video just popped up on there. Like, really? Really though. Anyway.
The system. She actually defended the status quo. And many of us then, as neurotics, you see, as we engage in our neurotic and maladjusted behavior and defend our egos and defend our vanities and defend our prides, actually support and hold up the system. Inherit or justify the abusing family. And how we, in many instances, end up justifying a system that abuses us. Integration itself indicates that. Wanting to live and be loved and lay around with people who destroyed us and enslaved us and given us the greatest pain in the world. Sometimes what we call in psychology the love of the aggressor. The people you want to love most are the people who've done the most damage to you. Unhealthy personalities cannot be created by healthy environments. Since the unhealth of an individual or group can result in the relative health, wealth, security, and power and sense of identity of another individual or group, the people you want to love most are the people who've done the most damage, justifying a system that abuses us. Integration itself indicates that. Wanting to live and be loved and lay around with people who destroyed us and enslaved us and given us the greatest pain in the world. Sometimes what we call in psychology the love of the aggressor. The people you want to love most are the people who've done the most.
But there's a specific phrase for that, for loving your aggressor. It's called the... It starts with an M? Does it start with an M? Oh, Stockholm Syndrome is what it's called. M? What the fuck was I thinking of? I'm thinking of the Mandela effect or something. I don't fucking know where I was saying M, but Stockholm Syndrome is what or the love of your oppressor. One of the most famous examples of a victim with Stockholm Syndrome is Patty Hearst, a famous media heiress kidnapped in 1974. Hearst eventually helped her captors rob a bank and express support for their militant cause. Another high-profile example is Elizabeth Smart, the Utah teen who was kidnapped in 2002. I remember that Elizabeth Smart case a little bit, but yeah, Stockholm syndrome is like you love the motherfuckers who treat you the worst. Yeah, Stockholm. What up? What up? See, motherfuckers smart as shit, bro. An opposite of Stockholm syndrome has been proposed and is called Lima syndrome, where the converse happens in the Lima syndrome. Obviously, if it's the opposite. So you got Stockholm syndrome and Lima syndrome. Wah, 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 wah. Dun, 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 dun. Stockholm syndrome. Fox already know this, but if you did not know, the mental condition where you love your oppressor, the person who is oppressing you, is called Stockholm syndrome. It's a real thing, and the greatest example is the house slave. Yes, sir, massa. Okay, massa. We's a sick boss. Y'all gotta do what the massa says. Love the massa more than he love himself. Stockholm syndrome. That's why this channel is called Art and Education, because we have a little bit of art and a little bit of education going on, bro. You know, not very common. It's not very common nowadays for the average American with such a short attention span to give a fuck about the arts, our education. But over here, we try our best. And fortunately, we have not been flagged by the YouTube police yet. So we must be doing a just service. I always follow the law, my good friend. I always follow the law. I keep my citizens rule book handy. You know, because the Bill of Rights and Constitution and shit, you know, you gotta go by the rules. You gotta, hey, everybody gotta follow the laws. So, Section 2, Index of the Original Document, General Index 2, the Unanimous Declaration. Article 3, Section 1, Judicial Powers. He has elected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat at their substance. The Constitution of the United States. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. Article 1, Section 1. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives. So, I'll stop right there. But you get it. I try my best. I attempt to do what's right. Little sippy sippy. Back to the education.
Elders cannot be created by healthy environments, since the unhealth of an individual or group can result in the relative health, wealth, security, and power and sense of identity of another individual or group, then it serves the interests of the latter group. In other words, the unhealth of the black community serves the health and wealth of the white community. Just as the sickness of the drug addict serves the health and wealth of the pusher. So in a sense then, it becomes in the interest of the pusher to keep the addict, of course, addicted, even though he claims he's doing him a service and a favor. The latter group becomes dependent, that is the unhealthy group, comes to need the unhealthiness, and that is the dominant group really becomes dependent and comes to need the unhealthiness of the former. If the health of the former means a reduction in the dominance of the latter, then the latter will resist the health of the former despite its pretensions to the contrary.
Goddamn.
In other words, when we even see assimilationism, we don't have time to talk about it here tonight, but in many ways assimilationism and integrationism is really another prompt for the maintenance of white power. And while we thought that we bought it in to a great extent, I would argue that to a good extent the white ruling class helped to push it as well, because it also helps to maintain the white ruling class in power. When you have a minority of people, such as the European, often in order to stay in power they must recruit from the very people they oppress. And therefore they will call up from those people certain talented people or other types who then will identify with their masters and help them to maintain the control over the masses. This often will be called integration and will often be called desegregation. But ultimately, if you look very closely, you'll notice one thing, that the real power relationship between those two groups has not changed. I talk about a number of things that we call constants, that if we look closely in the relationship, at the relationship between Europeans and Africans, we will note that there are certain basic things that have not changed despite all of the other things that we look at. Despite integrationism, despite political and social change, there are things that are still basically the same and have been the same for the last 400 years. The real power of black people, particularly if you talk about military power, has not changed fundamentally since the very time we met the European. You may find African countries now with jet planes and tanks that they bought from Europeans, by the way, and still have yet to make. And you may think then that the Africans have entered into a modern era in warfare and so forth. But I would dare say that it's not a single African country that can really protect the interests of black people against European power, particularly as that power moves out into space and can rain down on the African continent bombs and laser weapons and other weapons of various types. And African countries having no anti-ballistic system, no Star Wars system, no system to fight war in space, is literally defenseless. And yet they may fly the latest American jets, and in the face of American and European war power, we are still ultimately defenseless. That has not changed fundamentally in 400 years, ladies and gentlemen. The European economic control of this globe fundamentally has not changed either. The European control of information has not changed fundamentally either. The European control of definition, the definition of reality, the definition of what is and is not, has not changed fundamentally either. That has been the case for a long time. The European tendency to degrade things African has not changed as well. You may now have a degree in computer technology. You may now have a job that pays you $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year, but your fundamental relationship to the European has not changed one whit from the fundamental relationship between our African forefathers and his European slave master. For as you work your computers, you still work to the profits of Europeans. And so the fact that we've moved into the executive offices does not mean we've moved into power. Does not mean that the fundamental power relationship between Europeans and Africans have changed one bit. As a matter of fact, the moving of blacks into the executive offices is an effort to maintain that power and to obscure that power behind a form of neocolonialism. I don't think it is an accident that the desegregation movement and the assimilationist movement in America parallel the neocolonial movement in Africa. As I often tell my classes, you as black students are now being educated to put a black face on white power and to help deceive your people into thinking because you got a job, we have moved forward as a people. Let's then just take a quick look at the functions of maladjustment and why you cannot get blacks, why it is important that blacks never get out of that sickness. You ever wondered why the more social workers you produce, the crazier people get? The more psychologists you produce, the crazier people get? Have you ever wondered about that?
If thou buy an Hebrew slave, it should be slave. You don't buy servants. If thou buy a Hebrew slave, 6 years he shall serve. In chapter 21, they give you your whole list of how you buy and conduct your slavery. And then Revelations, it says, if you lead someone into captivity, then you shall be in captivity. It contradicts itself because here it tells you exactly how to lead people into captivity. It tells you how to do it right here. It says it gives you exact rules of how to lead someone into captivity. It's funny. It's so funny. Do you know that the whole Bible is actually black history? Do you know that all history is actually black history? Modern humans started in Southwest Africa. Southwest, yes. That's where modern humans come from. The black man was doing this shit for thousands of years before there was any other race. All of this shit comes from us, and it's all allegorical stories and myths that have been spread out and then brought back, altered, retold. Same shit, dude. It's the same shit. The Bible is actually black history. Man, everything is black history. If you go back far enough in time, that's it. It's all black history. Right back to my personal Facebook page. Some Dr. Amos Wilson. That's who we're listening to now. I gotta like my own shit. Fuck that. The Holy Bible for people who want excuses, lies, and bullshit. It says on the side right here, nothing in this book is original. And some more. Happy Dr. Amos Wilson Day. But you read the Bible. Have you ever read anything from Dr. Amos Wilson? This is an actual black person who we know wrote what he wrote, not some stories that we don't even know who really wrote these shit. Oh, that's me in the newspaper, cause I be balling like that. I'm always in the newspaper, chilling, bro. Newspaper action, famous, well, local famous, kinda. That's all I post, man. That shit is. The Bible Belt is also the divorce belt, the teen pregnancy belt, the gay belt, the gay porn belt, the obesity belt, the homicide belt, the poverty belt, the smokers belt, the infant death belt, the low life expectancy belt. Motherfuckers don't give a fuck about nothing but the Bible. Malcolm X. Anyway, y'all get it. Y'all see. It's art and education all the way around, yo. Even my Facebook don't be a lot of funny shit. It's education. Let's educate these people out here. You want to follow me? You want to be my social media buddy? This is what you gonna get. I took a poll yesterday, and it really surprises me because I'm so opinionated. My opinions can be swayed, and I'm one of those people who am not afraid to say that I'm wrong, and I like getting proved wrong because that means I learned something. But even though I sit here and talk about my opinions all the time, I hardly ever have anybody else in here with me. So it's mostly me, my thoughts, my ideas, my perspectives, and I have some loyal, long followers on here, yo, who believe in God. You know what I'm saying? And I don't. And I talk about this shit all the time, and it's like I still appreciate that though, just because we don't have the same beliefs, and I'm always expressing my understanding of, or trying to explain my reasoning for my beliefs or how I understand the world. And like, I don't try to offend people. Sometimes I try to just make it funny and light, because it is like it's that one. Don't talk about religion and politics. Like, why the fuck not? Those shits are so fucking taboo, and it seems more often than not, most religious people don't want to talk about their beliefs because you have to alter it in some type of way, because the average person will tell you, okay, you go to an average white American church and they're going to say Jesus is white, and there were, white people in Africa building pyramids, and motherfucking the writers of the Bible were Arab and some other stuff. But then you talk to black people and they say, oh, well, the Bible is actually black history and Jesus was black. And like, it's the one book, and even religious people who believe in the same book don't believe in the same shit. And so you got Baptist, 7-day Adventists, goddamn, what else? Motherfucking, what's the other southern motherfuckers who be doing this shit? But damn, Catholics, Mormons, goddamn, Jehovah's Witnesses, yo. All these different fucking denominations. Why can't I think of the other motherfuckers? There was some church my cousin used to go to, and they called themselves something else, yo. But it's like everybody reading the same Bible, then y'all still break that shit down into different beliefs, and it's like none of this shit don't make no sense. And then some people say, well, I believe in God, but I don't believe in the Bible. And then some people say, oh well, like my man, he quoting from Revelations, but then you go back to the Old Testament, which was a complete book. The Tanakh, the Old Testament, was a collection of writings in itself, and that's what people described or rewrote that shit and was passing around those manuscripts a long time before the New Testament came into play. But now people say, oh well, it's the New Testament and the New Covenant, and we don't really use a lot of the teachings in the Old Testament, but like Pentecostal, why that come to me, yo? That shit would not come to me for shit, bro. You smart motherfucker, man. Pentecostal. And that's what I'm saying. It's like so many of them. Is Joseph Smith the true prophet? Is Muhammad the true prophet? Is Jesus the true prophet? Is Buddha the true, like? And then you can make the books say anything. You can make it. You can get a Bible code out of it which says Hitler, World War II, or some crazy shit. But then you do that shit to Moby Dick, and it predicts Malcolm X assassination and some other crazy shit. Like, you get a code out of any fucking book. But why is it only the Bible debated? I missed that one. This is true, but the three major religions, Catholicism, Islam, and Christianity, all of them are based on the same text. All of them are based on the Abrahamic scriptures. I mean, the Quran is a whole different story, but it's still Jesus and all that shit, and Abraham and all that shit still in there. Still the same fucking shit. And then some of my one of my favorite lecturers, Christopher Hitchens. He comes at Islam all the time. Sam Harris comes at Islam all the time, and they say that Islam is one of the more extreme religions, and that's what I tell Christians too. Like, what up, bro? I ain't see you come in here, but I tell Christians, like, Muslims gonna kill themselves for their beliefs, bro. They gonna blow themselves up to blow you up. Christians don't go hard like that. Y'all build mega churches and drive fancy cars and flying G5s and shit, man. These desert dwelling motherfuckers, they really believe in their God, yo. They really believe in that shit. And they gonna go to war against the whole Christian world to stop the Christian world from influencing their beliefs. And they gonna kill themselves and everybody with it. And they believe just as strongly as you believe. But your God real and they God not, and your beliefs are good and they beliefs are not. You just don't want to upset your white business partners. I don't even understand that statement, bro. I don't give a fuck about upsetting anybody at all. I don't. Yo. But upsetting who? For what? You know what I'm saying? Like, bro. I'm part of an organization called the Black Scranton Project. Scranton being the city, black being the first word, the motherfuckers who running this shit. We post this shit all around everywhere. We, like I said, I'm in the newspapers, I'm on the news all the time. In an all black organization promoting all black information, knowledge, and education to my community. Scared of upsetting what white people? Who care who what? All my art. Who what? Who what? Black people. What, man? I don't care about upsetting nobody. If I'm upsetting you, then if I make you happy, if I influence you to react to any type of emotion, I'm happy about that. I made you mad, good. At least you thinking, you feel something. I made you feel something. If you took that emotion and turned it into a negative one, fear, sorrow, goddamn confusion, that's on you. That ain't on me. You know what I'm saying? Talking about making upsetting white people. Man, I remade the Sphinx out of stone. I mean, this iron with a big fat nose. They like, what you making? How the Sphinx was really looking before goddamn Napoleon shot its nose off. And they like, huh? Like, yeah, it was a nigga. You're scared of upsetting, huh? Come on, man. That chapter 21 hurt, bro. His shit is what it was, Revelation 10:13. Let me read this. Oh, 13:10 or whatever. What that shit say? Oh, nigga. Contradictions. So it's so funny. Shoot. And like I say, most people believe in God. Swear down, they don't believe in a religion. That's what I said, man. You might as well just throw the book out. Just throw the book away. That shit fun to read. Once again, my favorite part is the fire-breathing water dragon. Well, that's my favorite part in the whole Bible, yo. I swear. I love that part, yo. I done read that shit like 50 times. Just to be like, damn, fire-breathing water dragon. Motherfucker got unicorns and everything in that shit. You know what I'm saying? Some people say that if you look up the genus species of a rhinoceros, it's Unicornus or some shit like that. But think about it though, a rhinoceros is a big ass bull-like animal with a fucking horn on its goddamn head. How they get it to transfer into a goddamn horse with a horn coming out the forehead instead of out the snout? Stories, fables, people see it and then go back to their own country and try to describe it to someone else. And, well, is it big as a horse? Well, it's kind of big as a horse, but it's like this and it had a horn on it. Well, where was the horn? It was on its head, but yeah, that's more than likely the rhinoceros is where the fucking the myth of the fucking unicorn comes from. But that's all that shit is in the Bible, man. Goddamn, you might as well have goddamn mermaids and pixies in that shit. You know what I'm saying? Ogres and giants, and it won't be no different. I mean, you got zombies and motherfucker walking on water and shit. Come to me. You fell into the water because you lost your faith. I'm like, bitch, what the fuck, nigga? I ain't no mosquito. I can't land on top of the water. So much one-off shit, yo. Like, we know how the world works. We know how we interact with our environment. But the Bible just tell us shit that's like, oh, but that was Jesus, and that was Noah, and that was God helping them and all this shit. But we just know, like, that shit don't happen. Shit like that don't happen. But we believe these one-off stories that happened this one time long ago. Motherfucker walked on water. Better than that, yo, Moses, this motherfucker split the goddamn sea. He ain't even had to walk on water. This motherfucker walk on dry land. But then I question that too. If Jesus can walk on water, why didn't they just walk on water and then have the pharaohs and his soldiers not be able to walk on water? Then you wouldn't have to split the sea. But it's more dramatic when you're walking and the water's beside you and then it comes crashing down on the pharaoh's chariots and shit. That's way more dramatic instead of just saying, oh, we just kept running. We ran out to the sea and just kept running, and Pharaoh and them couldn't follow us. It's just, you got to get that action in there. First is the suspense, Oh, they're running, they're getting chased. You know, the majesty of the awesome power of God, and then the action comes in. You know, back then they ain't had like gas and shit, so that, you know, they wasn't like big explosions and shit blowing up and planes crashing. So you know, like water crashing down on the chariots. That's about it. That's some exciting shit, man. That shit sounds exciting. Hey. Noah's boat, this motherfucker fit 2 of everything. Well, really it says 7 of the clean beasts. Motherfuckers don't want to read this shit, bro. It says 7 of the clean beasts and 2 of the unclean beasts. But somehow after that shit flood the whole planet, kill all the life, you can go to California and they trees that's over 2,000 years old. But if God flooded the whole planet, then how the fuck do these trees still exist? These trees are older than the Noah's flood. You know, how after the flood did all the penguins get back to the North Pole, and how did the tortoises get back to the Galapagos Islands? How all that shit happened? Huh? I'm just asking questions, man. I just asking. So how Noah put all these animals on the boat? How he get all the germs and the bacterias and all that shit on the boat as well? And what the fuck did they eat? You got 2 lions. You know how much food just the carnivorous animals alone, the gators and the bears and the lions. You know how much meat these motherfuckers eat in a week? And what about the termites? But the termites the only motherfucker got all the food they need, but they can't eat that shit. Come on, man. Noah's boat, that shit just man. Yeah, Superman real. Shit, Metropolis real too. Yo, Spider-Man, all the motherfuckers real, man. If Jesus and God are real, man, everything real, bro. All that shit real. Come on. Y'all is tripping. Drinking some coffee, checking some Instagram. How hip hop gonna die with Wu-Tang is forever, ever, ever, ever. Your fear of looking stupid is holding you back. "9/11 was an inside job." God is not great. Wow, really? Yes, really. But peace though, bro. You know why peace? Because I'm addicted to freedom, and I love Picasso. And watch out, make sure y'all don't catch that COVID-19, yo, because that shit is real, son. Yo, that COVID-19 is real. That shit is real, boy. Yes, Jesus loves me, for the Bible tells me so. I ain't never seen no Bible this big, boy. This is the biggest book I got. This is the biggest and the oldest book I got, man. This bitch was printed in 1885. You know how long ago that is? I'll do the math for you. That is like 130 years ago. Yo, this book is 130 years old. It's older than any Bibles you got. And you know what? It still say the same bullshit. This shit say 2 people talk to a snake. That's the first story you gonna tell me? Come on, man. You want me to understand the origins of my creation in order to save my eternal soul. And the first story you tell me, these motherfuckers talk to a snake. A serpent. Once again, this just that one-off thing. Like, how come it doesn't happen now? It was a special serpent. Everything was special back then, man. How this motherfucker get swallowed by a fish for 7 days? Live to tell the story. Even as a child, with my childlike mind, I know that if I eat something alive, it's not going to stay alive inside my body. But the Bible says that's, you know what? It was a special fish. God sent that fish just for y'all. Yo, everything was special. Everything, it was just special, man. Shit was different back then. But now, not so much. Do I believe in evolution as much as they can explain it? I believe in the Bible as much as they can explain it. Explaining the Bible is fables and stories. That's all it is. Explaining shit to me. Okay, the man talked to the snake. Word. But science says over time, an organism will continue to adapt to its environment in order to manipulate it to its benefits. I can get with that. Abiogenesis. Okay, you can tell me that. But the only thing I like about science is science isn't afraid to say, I don't know. The Bible says, I know everything. I know everything, and the only answer is God. That's the answer for everything, is God. That's it. It's God. It's just God. You know? Science is saying we know this, this, and this, and we know this. We kind of know a little bit about this, and we don't know shit about that. We're trying to figure it out. We're coming up with new equations all the time. And trying to figure this shit out. We don't know yet. But we're trying. And religious people say, nope, God, I don't know why you're trying. It's God. But you can't prove God. Well, God exists outside of space and time. Then how can he interact with shit inside space and time? If he exists outside, well, he's God. But where did God come from? Well, God just was. Alpha, Omega. He has no beginning. He has no end. Well, that's the scientists say that's the universe. Says that the cosmos always was. So what's the fucking difference? Where is the difference? The cosmos has always existed. And there's a big bang within a big bang within a big bang within a big bang, and this shit just continues going for fucking infinity. No God needed. But like I said, religion just says we know the answer. And it's based on these old stories that have been retold and retold. It's, most people don't realize how you get the Bible, yo. It's a translation of a translation of a translation of a retelling of an oral tradition. That's all it is. Let's create hell. Let's make hell so these motherfuckers will fear that shit. You know what I'm saying? Nobody don't want to talk about the Inquisition and the Crusades and all of that shit where motherfuckers were forced by the edge of the sword to convert to their goddamn religions. And the Arabs did it with fucking Islam too. Murdered motherfuckers until they believed in their fucking God. Oh, you gon' believe in our God. And then you had fucking debates and councils for centuries 200 years editing the book until they can get it to say exactly and be as ambiguous as they want it to be. Well, everybody knows the book is edited and there's so many numbers of books missing. Why is that? Well, some of them weren't canon and some of them weren't this and some of them weren't that. And exactly. And that's why the Bible is so masculine. And that's why God is a man. Everything is so masculine so they can have the authority from their God to go out and conquer lands and subjugate people and take their goods and their virgin daughters. You know what I'm saying? And that's how slavery was so strongly instilled in the mind of the Africans, because the white man used the Bible to say, look, we are of the gods and you are our fucking servants. It says so right here, and use the same verses to keep them enslaved. It says you obey your master whether he be kind or harsh. Oh yeah, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, all this other shit. But you know, there's a long list of details on how to conduct your slavery. And it worked. That's what I'm saying, yo. Now your birth will be in pain and all this other shit, yo, and make women the fucking original cause of sin and all this other crazy shit, yo. The Bible is weird, yo. You know what I'm saying? They even say that a woman came from a man. We already, in reality, we know it's not. That's not how it works, yo. If anything, God is a goddamn woman, and Eve had to come first, and then a man came from her. Nobody don't even want to think about it that way. But ain't no goddamn man give forth life from his body, from a rib, and then, but goddamn, God made Adam out of dust and blew the breath of life into him. Why you ain't make woman like that? You had to use the man rib so that she's the womb of man. Womb man, woman. Once again, just subjugating and placing the authority of the man above the woman to say, bitch, you came from me, knowing that a man don't give birth. It's a whole fucking psychological game, yo. Because even God got a kingdom called heaven, and he has a throne because Satan was on the right hand of his throne, but wanted to place his throne above God's throne. So God had to kick him out of his kingdom, and God got his army. What the fuck a God need with an army or a kingdom or a throne? That's man wanting to be Superman. It's just logical thinking, people. If you think logically about these stories, it's man making himself into Superman so he can do whatever he wants to say because my God is willing it. And most of the religions are based on the same writings. Same shit. Same old hashed over stories from goddamn Odin and Krishna and fucking Isis, motherfucking all Dionysus, all these old ass stories, the same shit. Then it's just rewrap, change the names a little bit. Just like movies you watch nowadays. You watch a whole movie, that shit be just like another movie. They just change it a little bit. But it's like, man, I done seen this whole plot. The bad guy, you know, turn good at the end. You know what I'm saying? That's all it is. I watched some cartoon, what it was, Trolls. Never seen that shit. But all the trolls, they all colorful and glitter. Man, motherfuckers fart glitter and shit. Then you got this one troll, this motherfucker's all gray. He don't ever want to sing. And you already know, like, oh, at the end of the movie, he gonna get his happiness back and sing again. I already seen this. You know what I'm saying? I know how this is gonna end. This the same shit with the Bible. These stories have been told already. If you read other cultures, you'll know that shit. You know what I'm saying? It's weird as shit that some people just pick this one story and put all of their hope and faith into that shit and be like, this is the actual facts. I don't think so.
I lost a job challenging whites about that. Why you, as a white man, whom these crazy people have permitted to be chairman of the Department of Predominantly Hispanic and Black College, why do you, as a white man, continue to try to bring these psychologists in here when you know that this psychology is not doing the Black and Hispanic community one whit of good? I could not disagree with that. How do you pretend to judge the qualifications of black people for teaching other black people and Hispanic teachers and Hispanic students when you admit every day in the New York educational system that you don't know how to educate black children? We have a group of people who lament about their inability to educate black children. How black children are so-called uncontrollable and ineducable and all of that, and yet they want to sit on a board and determine who is qualified and not qualified. We have this insult downtown where these white dogs are going to try to determine who should be the chancellor of New York City schools, and yet have admitted that they cannot educate black children. And we'll sit there and let them try to lay the foundation to tell us what the credentials of an educator is supposed to be. How do you qualify to tell us what the credentials of an educator is supposed to do? You have not demonstrated that you are capable of educating black people, but yet there are a lot of us who want to sit back and talk about standards and degrees and all this other nonsense that the people who clearly admitted that they failed have laid upon us. And yet we have a lot of this going on in the system. But this kind of stuff must happen if black people are to continue to be subordinated. How is it functional? The captive African maladjustment justifies European dominance and exploitation. Because we are crazy, because we are criminal, because we are addicts, because we are that, the Europeans have a right to put their police in our community. They have a right to run the welfare agencies that keep us crazy, by the way. They have a right to intrude into our cultural families and personal lives. Why? Because, you see, they are maladjusted. They have learning deficiencies. They have this and that. Therefore, we're coming in to help and treat them in some sort of way. We are bringing in foreign aid. We are calling on the IMF to study and regulate their national economies and so forth. So you will see the so-called sickness and dependency and lagging in development and all of these other kind of things every day are justifications for the Europeans to intrude upon African life and seek to control that life. And when we accept their definitions, we accept their dominance. We ask for their dominance, and we see their dominance as some kind of aid to us. Yet, when we look some 40 years later, we are in the same position or in a worse position than before. How do we solve it? Asking more of it.
Y'all don't even want to fuck with Dr. Amos Wilson, boy. Dr. Amos Wilson. Yeah, that man love his people, yo.
Challenge welcomes the outspoken Negro leader, Malcolm X.
The Negro leader. Wasn't it cute when they could say that on TV? The Negro leader.
The real reason why you two men split, is it merely ideological or is it personality? What else?
Probably personality. It was not the statement that originally was given by the movement when we split. More personality than anything else.
You've called people like Martin Luther King, who just got a Nobel Peace Prize, an Uncle Tom. Is this correct? First?
Well, I'd rather say that in the States, there's a law that has recently been passed, or a decision handed down by the court, wherein if you call someone an Uncle Tom, they can sue you for libel.
Well,
so I never refer to them as Uncle Tom, so I would say that Uncle Martin is my friend.
Uncle Martin is your friend, yet you would disagree with his approach to what he wants to accomplish.
Definitely. If his approach would bring about what the black man in America needs to completely eliminate the problem that we have, I would say well and good. But I very much doubt that anyone who adopts the approach that Martin Luther King has been teaching to our people in that country can point to any meaningful gains that has actually served to solve the problem.
Black Muslims have sometimes, whether you have or not, and I think probably you have sometimes, it seemed to me, been preaching hate to meet hate.
All right, we're gonna work on these
any kind of hate.
the pants
There's
for
a lot of
about.
talk that sounds very much like
Let's see if we can get this. I think all I gotta do is do her pants and her shoes, and then the whole canvas will have 2 layers of paint on it.
The real condition of the black man in America, instead of the American white man eliminating the causes that create that condition, he tries to cover it up by accusing his accusers of teaching hate. But actually, they're just exposing him for being responsible for what exists.
Well, that's something of an argument, but I've heard speeches made by some of the people of your group. I think I've heard you make speeches. It seemed to me that you were advocating.
I'm gonna use some Prussian blue.
Well, I would have to describe, I think,
Some
as violence to
motherfucking,
the serious injuries that have been done your people, with which I totally
I
agree.
don't call that violence.
Some
I
cobalt
don't
blue
in any way
and some
encourage
radiant
black people to go out and initiate acts
turquoise,
of aggression
probably.
indiscriminately
Let's see how that
against
works out.
whites. But I do believe that the black man in the United States and any human being, anywhere, is well within his right to do whatever is necessary by any means necessary to protect his life and property, especially in a country where the federal government itself has proven that it is either unable or unwilling to protect the lives and property of those human beings.
Just before Pierre takes it, you've got a pretty good fighter and the world's heavyweight champion lined up with you. How about yesterday? Well, Mr. X, I guess I call you that. Is that the proper appellation, yes. Mr. X?
I'm wondering if you still believe, as I think you certainly did at the time you were allied to the Black Muslim movement, in a segregated black nation in North America.
I don't believe in any form of segregation or any form of racism. I'm against any form of segregation and against racism.
Am I right in saying that the Black Muslim movement, which you have left, did bleed in that?
Well, Elijah Muhammad taught his followers that the only solution was a separate state for black people. And as long as I thought he genuinely believed that himself, I believed in him and believed in his solution. But when I began to doubt that he himself believed that that was feasible, and I saw no kind of action designed to bring it into existence or bring it about, then I turned in a different direction.
Are you still a Muslim yourself?
Oh, yes. I'm a Muslim. I believe in the religion of Islam, which believes in brotherhood, complete brotherhood of all people. But at the same time that I believe in this brotherhood, I don't believe in forcing my desire for brotherhood upon those who aren't willing to accept it.
Of course, I think the Christians would say that they also believe in brotherhood. What did you say to that?
I say they believe in it, but don't practice it.
That'd be a pretty good answer.
Sir, when the Muezzin goes up in the minaret twice a day, he cries to the world, there is but one God, and he is Allah. Do you deny that there is a Christian God?
The Muezzin does this 5 times a day.
5 times, and I only heard him twice.
Well, you were fortunate to hear him twice. But he does this 5 times a day, and the same God that he says that he expresses the existence of is the God that the Christians profess to believe in themselves, and the God that the Jews believe in. One God, the creator of the universe. The Muslims believe in the God that created the universe, and I think the Christians do, and the Jews do. Now, as long as all of them are talking about the creator, the Jews may call him Jehovah, and Christians may have another name for him. Those who are Arabic-speaking refer to him as Allah. Well, we believe in the same God.
Now, as the Muslim religion advances in the United States, are you modernizing it or sticking with the old faiths? For example, the complete segregation of the sexes.
I think that everything today on this earth is being modernized. Religious principles and practices, as well as political and other things.
Now, when you went to Mecca, this is a very sacred and forbidden city. I tried to get to Mecca myself and certainly didn't make it, not being a Muslim. But how would they accept you as one? You're an American. There are few American Muslims.
This is true, and by being an American and not being able to speak the Arabic language, I did strike a snag, a very serious snag. But I was fortunate to have been pretty well known by the that I had accepted Orthodox Islam. It had been highly publicized in the paper, and I became a guest of the state. I was a guest of Prince Faisal, the present King Faisal. And they made it possible for me to go before the committee, High Committee or High Court, who examines you and asks you questions about your belief. And if you pass it, then you are okay to go to Mecca. But
You would have to have a translator then.
I had one. Then realizing that our problem in America, that we are black Americans, and we have a problem that goes beyond religion, we formed a group known as the Organization of Afro-American Unity. And the objective of this organization is non-religious, number one. Any Negro can belong to it. And the objective of that organization is to bring about a condition that will guarantee respect and recognition of the 22 million black Americans as human beings.
No, somebody kill this nigga. He doing what? No, we got to kill him now.
Is beyond America's ability to solve. It's a human problem, not an American problem or a Negro problem. And as a human problem or a world problem, we feel that it should be taken out of the jurisdiction of the United States government and the United States courts and taken into the United Nations in the same manner that the problems of the black man in South Africa, Angola, and other parts of the world, even the way they're trying to bring the problems of the Jews in Russia into the United Nations.
Shut him up, he's saying too much.
Rights. We believe that our problem is one not a violation of civil rights, but a violation of human rights. Not only are we denied the right to be a citizen in the United States, we're denied the right to be a human being.
Mr. X, may I thank you very much for coming on our program and perhaps clearing away some of the cobwebs of misconception that some of us might have had about your belief. And I think you're a very sincere man, and it takes a lot of courage to admit a former belief is wrong, and we congratulate you for that and the service you performed tonight in giving us your views. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Still hate that motherfucker to his core. What he wanted to say is, fuck you, nigga. Get off my stage.
Characteristics in the African personality and in the minds of African children, which if they existed there would be perceived as threats to European domination. And you will see those characteristics being what? Neutralized and washed out. And from that, when you start with that question, you can begin to see the system organized economically, politically, educationally, and in every way to create those characteristics or to neutralize those other characteristics which work against European interests. If the love of African people one from the other, if we can look beyond these names that white people have put up on us and see ourselves as one African people, is a threat to European dominance, then you will see us identifying ourselves in terms of these European given names. I'm West Indian, I'm Bahamian, I'm Afro-American, I'm this, and using those as what? As the basis and foundation for not coming together and organizing as a people, you see. In fact, you heard, I believe, on LIV the other day, I think the United States is now getting ready to put in a new racial category in the census called mixed. That's going to give a lot of Negroes a way out. Yeah. So they're going to bring into being a mixed race. So in the future, you can check off mixed. You know, check your little color out and do the mixed number. The South Africanization, this thing I've had to talk to for years and years, that race is not only a biological term, a genetic term, it is also a sociological term. And to a great extent, it is more important sociologically than it is biologically. People can define you in or out of the race at any time they feel like it. And one of the powers that we've given and permitted the European to have, you see, is that power to define ethnicity in a way that suits his will and his wishes.
Obama.
So now, in order
gotta check the mix box, but he the first black president. You see what I'm saying?
We will now create a new ethnic group, and that is what we call mixed. knowing that some of you seeking to escape your blackness and escape your African heritage and so forth will eagerly move toward that group, and you'll get a little differential crumb for identifying yourself that way, and therefore the burgeoning and developing power of African people can be broken, and our subordination can continue. This is the kind of game that is going on when you let another people define who and what you're about. It also lets you know then that the identification of black people the world over as African people is a major threat to European dominance. Otherwise, there would be no need for them to do what? Redefine you ethnically. They are motivated then to redefine the ethnic group, because redefinition of it means the minoritizing of the ethnic group, and therefore the more you fracture and minoritize a group, the weaker that group is, and that group then cannot overthrow you. When you are a minority, you gain power by minoritizing everybody else. And this is the game. And therefore, if identifying ourselves as Africans, regardless of nationality, is a threat to Europeans, you're going to find your children reject being called what? African.
My dream is to help people understand how the universe operates.
Really? That's cool, bro.
So that each person...
Tell that shit to somebody else, man. What is this?
The book is addressing the...
Why does it keep leaving from my Dr. Amos stuff, yo? It keeps taking me to other speakers and shit. I'm in a Dr. Amos type mood right now.
Okay. Thank you. No, that's okay. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you kindly. I don't think I can live up to such an introduction at all. I certainly want to thank you for inviting me here, and I'm certainly honored to be asked to speak with you and share a bit with you this afternoon.
Just trying to find like some shorter clips instead of, because his lectures are as long as my streams are, man. He be talking for like 2-3 hours.
We talked about earlier. I talked about Star Trek, and we talked about the time warp that Star Trek depicts quite frequently, of how people move from one state of consciousness and one world and are suddenly flipped into a new world. They go through a warp, and suddenly, all of a sudden, everything that they used to use to guide themselves no longer. The language that they used to speak can no longer be understood in the new world. The values that they used to guide their behavior are no longer workable. In fact, it gets them into trouble. The gods, the culture, the nature of the social relations, and all of the things that they used prior to meeting the warp no longer suffice. Now they must learn new values and new behaviors and new orientations in order to adapt themselves to the new universe that they live in. We are in that kind of position today. Think about the African and the world the African lived in prior to being brought across the oceans. Think about the gods we praised. Think about the organization of our society. Think about the languages that we spoke, the food that we ate, the dress that we wore, the music, the song, the dance, and all of those things that defined us as African people. And think how horrendous it must have been for us to be thrown into this world where there was a whole new language, a whole new social hierarchy, a whole new set of authorities People pushing you around who you don't understand. People who are putting strange tools in your hands. People who are trying to get you to relate to them and to relate to each other in a very different kind of way from what you're used to relating to. Think about the stress and the confusion, and think about the abuse. Think about the horror of that situation our parents and great-grandparents were put in. And there was somebody that said then, if you pray to this God, if you talk this way, if you dress this way, if you relate this way, you'll get a greater sense of security. Your anxiety will be reduced. You will feel good, and you'll be able to withstand the pain of your existence. And the God then that I'm going to hand you is one that I have created for you. And a theology that comes with it is one that I have created so that you will continue to serve me as you continue to serve it. And we come to believe in the veracity of that God and that religion. Why? Because we feel so secure when we follow it. And we feel so relieved when we follow it. And yet we wonder why, despite all of our prayers, despite all of our devotion, we still suffer the way we do. I often ask the question, why is it that the people who prayed the most have the most of their children in the jails of America today? Who shout and kick over the benches and so forth, that are filling up the prisons and have the children killing each other and addicted out here in these streets. There must be a problem here, ladies and gentlemen. We must reorient ourselves to our religion. We must reorient ourselves to our gods, because apparently we don't have the appropriate orientation. Because as that book you read says, you can tell a tree by what? The fruit it bears. And therefore, if it bears bitter fruit, or if it bears no fruit at all, the God you worship says it is but fit to be hewn down and thrown into the flame and consumed. Read your own Bible. It gives you a very practical measure as to whether the religion you're pursuing is an appropriate one. And that measure says, look at the fruit that it bears.
Motherfucker steady praying though, praying hard. Jesus, Lord save me, help me. Nigga, you still po in the hood since slavery. Get the fuck out of here, man. Get that shit up, yo. You wasting your time.
I moved to San Antonio about 5 years ago. There's so many parts of San Antonio that I would have never visited unless I got this job.
Yo, why won't you let me skip? Skip the motherfucking commercial, bitch. Jesus Christ.
It's pushing outside.
Okay, I already see how this is gonna do me, right? So they'll play one snippet from Amos Wilson, then they keep switching it up. Like sometimes if you play a type of video, it'll keep playing the other ones back to back to back, but they won't do that shit right here though. Whoa.
Hold my magic wand, cast my cowrie shells and leave them in the dirt.
What the fuck is this? I hate this laptop.
That you had to beware of a church such that when you walk into it,
this the same clip from the last one.
Jesus back behind the altar.
Let me just listen to that one.
That church is lying to you, and that church is going to have send you to hell. Even though you might not argue with the basic premise, you got to ask, who is saying this, and why are they saying it? What will be the consequence of my believing this? You see? You got to go beyond the absolute truth of something and look at it in the context of power and the context of differences. You see, you got a bunch of people right here telling you, well, we preach universal principles and we talk about universal truths. Then why isn't the bounty of the earth universally distributed? Why aren't the goods of the earth randomly distributed? Why is there a non-random distribution of power and benefits and so forth? And it seems to cluster around the very people who preach universal principles. And the people who believe it most have it least. Yeah. Because you see, that guy who's telling you that we all should be free to invest wherever opportunity lies is the only guy that has what? The money. And therefore, through your very moral belief, you will give consent to being, to having your property owned by others, to have your resources owned by others. And then you'll find yourself wondering, why do good people suffer? It's built in. They suffer because they believe in absolute truth and nothing else. And the more they suffer, those who preach those absolute truths tell them that they suffer because their belief isn't strong enough. So they believe harder and become poorer. And therefore, we find among us the people who play the loudest and the longest and kick over the benches and fall back tend to also be the poorest in the society. You have not learned anything from your Bibles. That very first book demonstrated to you that the Israelites had a contract with God called a covenant. You scratch my back, God, and I'll scratch yours. God was, they just didn't say, I'm going to lay down on my ground and just worship you. You do whatever you want to me. That wasn't what it's about. When you read it closer, you'll see Moses negotiating. That says, okay, God says, you do this, and what? And I'll do that. You break the rule, then you will suffer. But if you follow the rules, then I will deliver. So God also does what? Serves. He's not only served, he what? Serves. But the Negro is only taught to what? Serve God. And therefore, we serve religions, but our religions do not serve us.
Okay.
Somebody told Elijah Muhammad, being a black Muslim makes you unorthodox. That's exactly the point. Because being black Muslim means that Islam will serve whom? Black folk. It just won't be an instance of black folks serving what? Islam alone. But Islam, being black Islam, becomes an Islam that operates in the service of black folk and black interests. Hope you understand what I'm saying here. You understand? We have to recognize this, so we got to get over this absolutism. And the Marxists run the same game, scientific socialism. Same old nonsense. In what way does, you gotta ask, in what way does my believing this serve me? And in what way do your preaching this and having me believe this serve you? And say, while what you say is true, and I don't argue against it, I am not in agreement with the consequences. We must also change some other things in our relationship along with this belief, so that in my believing it, I will not be deprived of my freedom, but deprived of my resources and of my possibilities. Share some of that doggone money if you believe it so hard. Oh, let me run. I know my time is going out here. We're going to run it through, ladies and gentlemen. We got another speech coming. But due to power differentials, the processes of latent behavior are tantamount to the processes of creation. It goes back to this. The application of certain rules and definitions to others influence how they are related to. When you put a label on somebody, you are also defining how other people, how that somebody is going to be related to by others. It's not a mere label. It is a prescription for relationships, how other people will relate to this individual. It is also a prescription for how this person will be perceived by others and how they relate to themselves and perceive themselves. In other words, then the labeling of people affects their perception of themselves and of the world. And by being labeled then, their vision is transformed. And to a degree, so is their psychology. And so is their relationship with other people. Thus, due to power differentials, the processes of labeling behavior are tantamount to the processes of creation. What am I saying here? The processes of letting Europeans label our behavior and apply their rules and definitions to our behavior is not a mere stigmatizing of our behavior, but it is tantamount to their creating our behavior. For today, ladies and gentlemen, we are a created people. We have been created by the European power system. We have yet to become self-creating. And we will become self-creating when we become self-labeling. And we become labelers of the world ourselves. When we measure our children and relate to them in terms of our measurement, not in terms of other people's measurement of them. Labeling and the prescriptions it implies may therefore become a part of the problem it is designed to solve. You thought it was going to solve your child's problem when they were taking the special ed? No. It becomes a part of the problem itself. It helps to maintain the problem. It is there to maintain the problem. I was going to do a definition of learning disabled, but in the interest of time, I'm going to skip over that. The process of classifying a child as learning disabled typically begins when a teacher or parent or both becomes dissatisfied with the child's performance in school. And then the child may be tested, or tests are recommended. Why are no tests? There are no tests of the teacher. Yeah. No test of the school. No test of the school system. No test of the political purpose and direction of the educational system itself. Why is it that it's the child who's the only thing tested in this equation, ladies and gentlemen? Who is the learning disabled child? According to the definition passed by public law, enshrined in public law 94-142, who is the disabled child leaves the specific procedures for classifying learning disabled children up to individual school districts and to states. And then you're going to have various definitions. Definitions that center around aptitude as they relate to the child's actual achievement, that is IQ and what he's really achieving. Some of them will look at the discrepancy, that is the discrepancy between aptitude and achievement. Others will base their learning disability estimation on the number of grades below grade level. Some will say 1 year, others will say 2. Others will look at special tests, maybe some perceptual motor tests and other kinds of tests, psycholinguistic tests, or they have just catalogs of tests. They may even measure the EEG and put them through the PET scans and EMRs and all the rest of that stuff. They have special ways of interpreting standardized tests. Look at the scores on the Stanford Binet or the other tests. All of these are ways in which the learning disabled child is supposedly discovered. According to a respected authority in this area, author of the book Learning Disabled, yes, Child, and by Sylvia Farnham Diggory, an alarming number of children are misclassified as learning disabled. By recent estimates, 80% of the children who are classified as learning disabled should not have been. We have a game going on here. Gerald Coles, in The Learning Mystique, a critical look at learning disability, contends that the rare, genuinely learning disabled children, perhaps 5 out of every 1,000 children, are often lost in the misclassified crowd and are not receiving the specialized education that they need and that the federal law mandates. I just want to mention here in closing, you got to recognize that there are any number of definitions. Despite the increasing number of students being declared eligible for learning disabled services and the intuitive appeal of this term, learning disabled, there's little agreement as to what it really is. In the Journal of Psychoeducational Assessment, a study by Vaughn and Hodges reported as many as 38 different definitions in a survey of 42 state departments of education as to what it means to be learning disabled. So what are we talking about here? They found considerable variation across states and districts. And of course, related to these variabilities in definitions and rules for defining what's learned behavior is, of course, the variability in the number of students you're going to get defined as learning disabled. This is why I was talking earlier about rules and definitions, you see. In other words, what rule and definition you apply creates populations, you see. Because the rule then will enclose certain types of behavior. One rule will enclose it, whereas the other rule will not, you see. In a research sample including 48 school-identified LD students, learning disabled students, and 96 non-learning disabled students, Vaughn and Hodges determined how many were classifiable as LD, as learning disabled, according to 14 operational definitions. That is, they said out of these 38, we're going to take 14 of the definitions. And these are operational definitions, meaning that these definitions not only define what they perceive as learning disabled or behavior indicative of learning behavior, but they define also how this behavior is to be measured. You see, how do you come to discover this? The total sample then was 144 students, and it contained therefore 33% of school-identified learning disabled, that is, children designated as learning disabled were 33% of the sample, and 66%, roughly speaking, of the sample were non-learning disabled students. Now, when they applied these tests then, these 14 tests, applying these different rules and definitions, they got then different populations of people they call learning disabled. The percentage of the total sample, including both learning disabled and non-learning disabled students as defined by the schools, the percentage of the total sample identified by each definition ranged from 5.3%. There is some of the definitions that said only 5% of these students are learning disabled, despite the fact that 33% had already been identified as such by the schools. Others, at the other extreme, says 70% of the sample is what? Learning disabled. Which means then if you originally had 33 that were 3% that was identified as learning disabled, this extreme definition went above that 33 and included something like 36% of the ones who hadn't been so defined. So what are we saying again here? The definition, the rules, create, in a sense, the disability and define the populations. So why do we just lay back when we let another people apply definitions and rules to our children? Is it because we believe psychology is some kind of exact science? Or is it because we simply believe that those who are engaged in this process are only performing psychological services? Are only in there to serve educational purposes when they don't even know what the hell they're talking about? Okay? For the learning disabled sample alone, 9 of the 14 definitions did not identify even half of the learning disabled students as learning disabled. Okay? So that's that. But in terms of time, we're going to have to move on. Let me skip over some things. Maybe on another thing we'll look at this. Let's quickly look at the political economy of special education. Has many economic implications. Once a child has been certified as learning disabled, additional money is sent to the school district on the child's behalf. The exact amount varies, but it's quite substantial. It is well now over $7,000 per child. You're talking about an industry as a result of defining our children as learning disabled that generates now well over $15 billion. The money is not sent directly to the individual children, but goes into a general budget to pay the special education personnel and buy supplies. So what do we have here, ladies and gentlemen? A built-in incentive to do what? Classify our children as learning disabled because it brings in money to the district. So it's no wonder then that between 1977 and 1986, the children classified as learning disabled moved from 800,000 to 2 million. You'll learn one day, ladies and gentlemen, that black problems and the image of black people as problem people is worth billions of dollars to Europeans. Okay, let's just... This label then does what? It obscures the nature by which our children are disenabled and obscures the fact that this society and Europeans, if they are to maintain their power, must disenable the capacity of African people. It is a political and economic necessity that the African mind is disengaged and disenabled. And we have to understand that. But as long as you stay focused on labels, and as long as you're reacting to the labeling of your children, and as long as you get into controversies about whether these labels are culturally biased or not and so forth, the process and the means by which our children and ourselves are mentally lamed by the system are overlooked. And the economic ends of destroying our mentality are overlooked. I've got to mention one other thing here. And one of the major obscurations of the political and social process. And that's what we call the medicalization of social problems. Because the learning disabilities in our children are political problems, ladies and gentlemen. They are not even academic problems. We have to understand that. It's just in the academy and in the school that the political problems between Africans and Europeans are manifested as what? Learning problems. They do not originate in the school. They originate in the political and economic relationship between African people and European people and reflect the power relationship of our people. And if we are to remain relatively powerless as a people, then our mentality must remain relatively powerless. This is what it's about. And one of the major ways you can obscure these historical and sociological processes is by making the result of these processes appear to be medical in nature. Yes, this is the game. Just as now they're trying to medicalize the so-called violent behavior of our youngsters and make that behavior now an expression of genetic orientations. That's the end point of medicalizing problems. You see, you no longer have to talk about the social historical processes and the criminality of Europeans and how it reflects itself in the so-called criminality of African people. You can now discuss the genetic foundations of African criminal behavior. And you can now call conferences dealing with genetic markers for violent behavior. And now you can talk about identifying those who are violence prone by age 5 before they even know what the hell violence and criminality is about. And therefore, we then, once you move the definition away from the social and the political system, you then no longer demand social and political change. And you then no longer demand the change in power relations. And you then no longer decide to create revolution to change the situation that we're in. You just only then want to take them to the doctor and have medicine prescribed for them. And so what happens then when you medicalize the behavior, which is what happens to a lot of our so-called learning disabled children who are given Ritalin and other stimulants and tranquilizers and so forth. The medicalization of deviant behavior is defining and labeling of deviant behavior as a medical problem, not as a political problem, not as a social problem, not as a problem of conflict and interest between groups, not as an issue about power and so forth, but as a medical problem, as an illness. And mandating the medical profession provide some type of treatment. Not that political leaders provide treatment, not that revolutionary leaders provide a treatment for the problems that our children are facing. Not that we revise the economic and political system, but that now our children's problems be dealt with by the medical profession, and the medical profession is given sole authority in determining how to label their behavior and treat their behavior. And our authority over them and our right to determine the nature of the society and change the nature of the society that our children has been inherited now will be looked upon too as an expression of illness and abnormality. And that is why medicine in the 60s and even today looked at black revolutionaries as candidates for psychosurgery. And saw this, the very just protests of black people, as indicative of illnesses in black people. So what are the consequences of medicalization? To remove a court's responsibility from the political system, to expand the jurisdiction of medicine, to increase the pharmaceutical profits of pharmaceutical corporations and enterprises, to put an apparent neutral, morally neutral label on our people, to remove discussion from public discussion, to use powerful methods to maintain the status quo. We must then, ladies and gentlemen, look at this system critically. We must look at this system politically and economically. We must recognize the political and economic functions of education and the intentionalities of Eurocentric education. We must review the accepted theories of learning and thinking. We as African people must construct and apply new African-centered theories of learning and theories of pedagogy. Yes, yes. This is why I developed and wrote the developmental psychology of the black child. All school systems are ultimately founded on what I call the implicit child. These schools which your children now attend were schools that were not designed for them. schools not based on their psychology, and yet we have walked directly into them and permitted their structures and original intentionalities and design and so forth to remain. Which means then there is a built-in discontinuity and dissynchrony between these schools and the philosophies of these schools and the methods of teaching in these schools and the psychology of children on which these schools are based and the true psychology of our people and the true intentions of our people. And we now wonder why they have problems. The problems are generated by the very structure and nature of the schools themselves. And they're generated by the fact that African people have not founded a theory of education based on the African experience. We have not explored and examined ourselves deeply to recognize to what extent our learning styles and our thinking styles and our value styles and our motivational styles have been created and distorted by being an oppressed people. And how those styles represent themselves in our children as they walk into Eurocentric schools, and how they express themselves then as so-called misconduct, as hostility, as boredom, as misbehaving, and all the other things that are now used as markers to say that they are learning disabled. You have to understand this. You have to understand yourself and come to self-knowledge and know who you are so that you will know who your children are. So that you can then design your schools and their educational experience in line with who they are and in line with where you want to go. I've told you before that the African child has a different destiny than the European child. That the destiny of the African child is revolutionary by the very nature of the economic and political position that African peoples are in. It is no way, if you're in your right mind, you could demand that your children have the same education as white children. They do not have the same problems as white children to solve. If you were to say that African people do not own even their own nations, if you were to say that Japanese and Arabs and Lebanese and all these other Eases have control of the African economies, if you can say the Koreans and the Arabs and the others have control of your economies here in America, if you can say whether you go wherever black country you go to, the blackest of the people are at the bottom of the ladder, then you must know that the role of the African child is to overthrow the system and to change the power relations here. So the major problem that the African child must solve is the problem of oppression. This is not the problem of white children. And therefore, if this child is to be appropriately educated, it must be educated to undertake revolution and to gain its liberation through its own struggle. You understand? But it's because you think equality and being the same as other people are one and the same. No, no. To be equal is not to be like. To get an equal education to white folk is not to be like white folk. Because it is in our effort to be like white folk that we generate the power for white folk to continue to rule us. Therefore, you got to look at yourself. You got to look at your history. You got to look at how that history still reflects itself in the way we behave. I don't have time to talk to you here tonight, but we talk about the oral tradition. A lot of what is perceived as learning disabilities is still a reflection of the African oral tradition operating in African people today. But of African people coming and children coming out of that oral tradition being placed within the context of a European literate condition. And then using European standards, looking at that behavior is indicative of learning disabilities. Our black children do not come to school behind white children. They come to school as they are. They are not behind any children. They are our children, and they represent our experience. And therefore, consequently then, the schools that they go to must be redesigned to meet their needs and to meet the needs of African people. And where you see those African schools which have redesigned themselves, and we have many examples, you see African children doing what? Learning and surpassing other children. I'm telling you. And we can name them one right after the other. But they don't make the news. I heard one sort of made a little news a couple of weeks ago on 60 Minutes. But like these things, they pop up and nobody hears of them again. I was listening to Asa Hilliard a few weeks ago, naming these examples of schools that have demonstrated the great learning capacities of black children. And he says, when he goes around to the schools and asks the administrators, have any of the state officials of education been here to visit this school? No. They don't visit it. They're not incorporated. We know what the intention is there, ladies and gentlemen. Then, ladies and gentlemen, I have to end it here. I did have some advice for parents who are working with this situation now. Perhaps we can deal with that a bit later. But we have to recognize then that ultimately, if we are to change the so-called disabilities of our children and of ourselves, we must change the nature of the power relations we have with others and ourselves. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Listen, Dr. Amos Wilson, let's...
You're watching The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ MV Angela Yee, Charlamagne the God. We are The Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
That's right.
Dr. Umar Johnson.
Yo, that shit will not pause. I hit that shit twice, 3 times. That bitch still ain't paused. I had to turn it down, yo. I swear, yo. I hate this fucking laptop. I never realized how loud that heater is until it turns off. Alright, guys, about to call it quits for tonight. Got work tomorrow. Hold up, what's tomorrow? Wednesday? Shit. Tomorrow's my late night. Gotta stay at work until 8 night. Man, I really wish it was a date night. Because I really, really hate my late nights. No, I don't hate my late nights. Because on Wednesday evenings, I do childcare, so it's pretty fun. Just playing with the kids. Watching some movies. Drawing some pictures. Make sure they don't eat crayons. You know what I'm saying? Reading some stories and shit. Easy stuff. Easy peasy. Alright. So we... Oh, every time, bro. Oh my god. Shit. Yes. I just dropped a picture on my palette. And now we have globs of wet paint that are just going to waste. Fuck. Hate when I do that. See what happens when you talk shit about God? He punishes you. That was a joke. Look at all that paint, man. Damn, that's a lot of paint. Gotta try to save that. No! Jumping Jehoshaphat. Let me just set that down right now. For I really fucked some shit up. God damn it, man. Let me put this glove back on. I'm about to get this shit all on my hands. Contaminating my bloodstream. Shit. Alright, so wipe that off so the next time I come to pick it up, it's not all still on there, getting back on me all over again. Sons of a bitch. What is that? That's wet. Damn, that's wet too. Alright. Alright, this is wet all the little spots. Alright. People are like, I got a picture I want you to paint. I'll send it to you. Like, no. Look, do not send me the actual picture. I'm going to fuck it up. What you do is you send me a digital copy of the picture, and I'll print my own copy of it, and then I don't feel bad when I fuck it up. Yeah. Don't feel so bad if I fuck it up then. But don't send me your copy, because you ain't getting that shit back. Yeah, on the backside. Like a cat. Alright, you got a little detail in the one leg of the jeans. That took a whole solid fucking hour, because I talked for a fucking hour, because I run my mouth all the time. Except in person. So got some little bends in the fabric. Gotta come back, do some more trimming down in some of the creases. But they starting to pop out a little bit. Get the creases to pop out. You can see the dramatic shift in blue from the right leg, left leg to the right leg. So that's that second coat of paint. Always make it stand out. Tomorrow morning, I'll probably get up in the morning, come back in here, work on that other leg back there, try to get a little more definition in these jeans, and then add some highlights to the sneakers and get some definition on their shoes. And then we're back to the hair and the face and starting this whole process all over again. Come back, working some more highlights in their hoodie, get some of those shadows a little deeper and some creases, highlights a little brighter. Get some of the shadows falling on the table a little brighter, and continue to add to the graffiti on the chalk wall. So Definitely look forward to some new trivia questions. If you answer the trivia question correctly, I will allow you to write something on the board, whatever you want, a phrase, a quote, a saying, your name. It doesn't matter. It goes right up on the board, but you do have to answer the question correctly. Wow, those two legs look so much different now. That second layer of paint is really where you start seeing how everything is going to look. Once again, I'm going to paint this one more time, but still you can see like the dramatic difference in the hues and the tonal shifts in the blues from the darker, more muddy looking underpainting. But that's how you got to start out. You need a foundation layer, and then you can build on top of it, and then build on top of that, and then you'll get that more lush three-dimensional. As long as you can get your tones right, yeah, that oil paint will work out for you every time. And that shit hot. That shit coming out nice. I like it. I mean, it's mine. It's my idea and everything. I took the picture. And I'm doing the painting. So it's kind of like I have to say I like it, but I like it because that shit hot, son. Not just because it's mine. If somebody else painted this shit, I'll be like, yo, son, that shit hot, son. You know what I'm saying? That shit hot. All my brushes clean. Wow. About to do that amateur shit. Leave dirty brushes. Alright. What do I do? All right. Turn this bullshit off. All right, that's good to go. That's good to go. That's off. The gloves are off. Bare knuckles. Alright, turn the speaker off. Come on. Give me that. Yo, appreciate y'all chilling in the studio with me, checking out the progress on these portraits, you know, spitting a little bit of art and education. Y'all people have a good ass evening. I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.